Good morning. Good morning. Happy New Year. I am back. I am back after a little hiatus. Just kind of sitting in here. I hope everyone had a great New Year. We did a show last Friday. It was a great show. I enjoyed it. Today we celebrate the birth of Martin Luther King. He would have been 86. Boy. Well, I have with me one of my favorite people, Miss Jasmine Espy. Good morning,
Good morning. How are
you
you?
know projection.
Yes.
And I figured we get some young blood on here and we have some discussions and things to see how they're feeling about certain things. Jasmine, why don't you tell the audience a little about yourself?
Absolutely. So, I just graduated from Wayne State University for broadcast journalism, and currently I'm in between jobs, looking for that next opportunity. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm a poet. I am an audio engineer. I do a lot of things, produce all of that.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
Isn't that great? Now, what was your major? Journalism?
Yeah, broadcast journalism.
Broadcast journalism.
Yes.
That's interesting because really today, as opposed to years ago,
Hmm.
you could broadcast you you could broadcast anywhere
Yeah.
today.
Hmm.
Years ago, you had to be in a studio. Now people
Yeah.
can broadcast from their homes,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
because of computers and stuff.
Yeah. Podcasting, all of that.
Podcast. I'm going to do a podcast. I'm going to do it. I'm
Hmm.
getting around to it.
Hmm.
Drake Pfeiffer. Do you know Drake?
No, no, who's
No,
that?
Urban Organic. You've heard of Urban Organic? He gives concerts and stuff, and
Okay.
he's kind of an activist for the good of Detroit.
Mm.
Yeah, he and I have been talking about that, so I'm gonna do a podcast as soon as I get a little time.
Hmm.
But in commemoration of Dr. King, we're going to talk a little bit about him. Where my vision when I was around when he was assassinated. I was around, of course, when he was going through the things. I didn't even know about civil rights until he came around. Malcolm X was around, and then H. Rap Brown. All of these people. But we'll talk about that shortly. And then maybe you could tell us about some of the people that you guys look up to. But I wrote a poem about 24 years ago called His Dream Was for You. And I wanted to share it. I wrote this about Martin Luther King, well, about what we should be thinking about. Martin fought for freedom so long, and his dreams for his people were so very strong. But I don't think some folks heard about that. His visions of freedom were so deep. Oh, my people, the images woke him right out of his sleep. I know that. Philip was the president of his middle school class and graduated from Morehouse at the top of his class. Did you hear about that? Some young people shot up a dope house. Children were killed. Now, I bet you heard about that. Today, the struggle that pulls us is what Martin wanted, what we still need. Oh, yes, more of the same. That's the creed. The media will make us think we've missed the mountaintop. But the electronic barrage has just got to stop. You young people don't lie, steal, cheat, or kill, but the television makes the masses think that you will. Take note of that. That's very important
Hmm.
because perception, we had this discussion the other day on my show, how a lot of people look at something one black person
Hmm.
does
Yeah.
and they think all people are
Yeah.
like that.
Absolutely. Me and my parents talk about that a lot. I think that it's really crazy that if I walk into a place, like say in the suburbs, I represent every black person that's ever in existence. And it's just like, I don't need that burden as a millennial. I don't need that burden as a person. And that's wild that we are judged like that, you know?
We are judged like that. We are judged. There's a perspective. It's all in how people look at things.
Hmm.
And even back in the day when I was young,
Yeah.
the same thing. I'll never forget I was in a store. The store was on Finkel, and this was in the early 70s. And I was in there, I was getting something. I, I guess I seemed pretty safe.
Hmm.
But another a younger black girl came in and they started Cuesta night. They were talking in their other language,
Mm-hmm.
and I could tell it was about because one of the words was Nigra,
Mm.
which Negro, black, or
Okay.
whatever, and they it just hasn't changed. And then when you have a president who says the kind of things he says
Right.
about black people,
Exactly.
it's just to me getting right on top of what some white people think anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the media has a lot to do with it, and we're going to talk about that. Um, you must refuse to play second fiddle in this man's land. Yet some of your young brothers and sisters succumb to the slavery of guns, drugs, and violence. Stop it, don't tell. Martin wouldn't understand. Some rappers, and that's when we had more gangster rap when I wrote this, and dropouts tell you life is a game you just can't win. But they don't have Martin's vision. Now, ain't that a sin? Don't let a rap song design who you are because you can't fulfill his dream by hijacking a car.
Mm.
Uh,
That's powerful.
Wait a minute, but you know, they are still doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember in 1969, when I got my driver's license, my father saying to me, "Oh man, I just realized something. I don't have the phone over here so I
Mm-hmm.
could take calls. I really want the phone." But anyway, my father telling me that if somebody bumps into your car,
Mm-hmm.
just keep on driving
Mm.
because people are doing things now. They want you to get out your car and
Right.
stop.
Right.
And that was in 1969.
Mm. I feel like they just still do that now.
Yes, yes, I know, but I'm just saying, look how long it's been
Oh
going
yeah,
on.
absolutely.
You know, look how long it's been going on.
Absolutely.
This poem is not private, so come peep my whole card. For when you do, you'll know the truth. You must continue to fight hard. Did you hear that? Hard, not hardly, to live Martin's dream about you. Education, strong families, upright success, strong and true. I hope you heard that. I'm telling you, like I tell my own children every day, hold fast to your dreams and they won't go away. Don't wait around for your dreams to come true. Follow them just as I speak. That's all you must do. Don't say, no one told me his dream could be mine. I'm warning you, my darlings, procrastination is there to steal all of your time. Resolve your conflicts and dispose of worthless jive because in Martin's dream, only the strong will survive. And I know you heard that. I don't understand, even to this day, why we victimize each other. What is it? You see, back then we were worried about drugs and some other things.
Right.
I got to get the phone. I need to get the phone. And it's right there.
Do you want me
I,
to grab it?
I'm going to have you grab that phone
Okay.
right there. I, oh, he's going to get it. Oh, wow.
Okay.
That's so nice. I forgot to put it on the table. Excuse me, everybody. And thank you. Thank you, Sean. Thank you so much. So, Jasmine,
Yes.
what do people your age um, believe about anything? About Martin's dream. I say that anything because there are a lot of you doing
Yeah.
what I know. I'll tell you what I noticed. I noticed that a lot of young people are being entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
They're starting their own
Mm-hmm.
businesses. And I think that's wonderful
Mm-hmm.
because when I graduated, it was about get a job
Mm-hmm.
as a teacher.
Yeah. It's still. I feel like so with millennials, I feel like we get blamed for a lot of things because
Tell
we
the
have
audience what age is millennials.
millennials is I want to say that's like 90s to
Born in the 90s.
yeah, born in the 90s to like somewhere in the 2000s. I'm not
Can't be
quite sure,
that
but I
far in the
think
2000s.
like
Because
early in the 2000 eras, something like that.
okay,
And I guess that's like my generation and whatnot. And so Millennials, I feel like we get a lot of slack sometimes because our model and our way of being is not like it used to be. And so we're kind of trying to change the way things are. So we're trying to be more respectful of each other, our beliefs, push for movements like, homosexuality being legal, which it should be because people should be able to marry and love who they need to love. At least that's my opinion, and that's what I fight for. I believe that nobody should have issues crossing over to different countries. There shouldn't be borders. We fight for different things, and it might not come in the capacity that baby boomers or the older generation necessarily thinks it should be translated. But I think that we're still working towards where your generation left off. So we're kind of like trying to pick things up from Black Lives Matter movement, from I
I'm
mean,
laughing. I'm only chuckling because
uh-huh.
my generation, eh, we are baby boomers,
Hmm.
and we came along. I mean, fight the power was
Yeah,
our deal,
yeah.
and getting out there. I don't think marching works
Hmm.
personally.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like marching, a lot of the stuff that we saw was done in private. So sort of like the policy and the moving and shaking, all that stuff was done in private. And then they brought it up to the front and they marched and they were just like, well, you're going to listen to what we have to say. But I feel like that's what our generation doesn't understand is that a lot of the stuff was done behind the scenes before it was broadcast in front of
Well,
everybody else.
we were finding our way. We
Hmm.
were finding our way back in the day. I mean, if some people, because when I graduated from high school, I don't know, maybe I was sheltered. I didn't know that much was going on. And I graduated in the little after the mid 60s. But right away, when you get out in the world,
Hmm.
see, a lot of times in high school, you're kind of sheltered.
Yeah, yeah,
But when you get out in the world and you have to kind of maneuver, you say, golly, this is going on, this is going on.
yeah.
And then we had President Nixon. And I remember some of the white students at school, they were just so for Nixon. And I was against the Vietnam War.
Hmm.
And it just was a clash there.
Hmm.
And then we were for rights. Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King. And the thing about Martin Luther King, at times we thought he was kind of passive because
Hmm.
he, at times,
Hmm.
because he said, you know, nonviolence all the
Right.
way. But my thing is, if they hit you, you got to get them back.
Yeah, and that was always my thing. I was with both Martin Luther King and Malcolm X growing up because I believe that, you don't necessarily go out there and just start beating white people like or anybody. You just when somebody hits you, you defend yourself, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you kill them. That doesn't mean anything, but you can't. I mean, I necessarily don't believe in turn the other cheek because it's kind of like then somebody has the right to step on you, and then take you out if they wanted to, and that's happened over and over again. And so, I feel like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X both had important views.
Well, not too long before Martin Luther King was shot and
Hmm.
killed, um, he was on the Johnny Carson show.
Mm.
I'm sure it was the Johnny Carson show because it was on in my dorm room. And he was talking about, all of a sudden,
Hmm.
it just seemed he was saying, well, we need to get back at people. He wanted to push back at those people who were being violent.
Hmm.
And I said, wow, look at him. I said, he's becoming a little more
Hmm.
aggressive, militant, and so forth. And I was really impressed. I was excited.
Hmm.
And then, like a couple of weeks or so later, I was in a speech class, an evening speech class, and someone came to the door and said, "Could they see me?" And I was the only black person in the class, and I went to the door, and they said Martin Luther King just got assassinated, shot and killed. I said, "Oh my God!"
Hmm.
And so, they said we're meeting up at the thing because we were
Yeah.
meeting, we was meeting, and I remember turning around, telling the teacher, I said, Martin Luther King just got killed. And a white boy in the class said, Ah, that's just like someone getting hit by a car to me. Ain't no big, like no big thing.
Wow.
And I said, what? And the teacher said, Brenda, you could go, you could go. I couldn't, but
Wow.
those were the attitudes. And I feel that the attitudes haven't changed that much.
No, I feel like they've been pacified for these past couple of years, and like Trump. I mean, I feel like really when Obama got into office is kind of when we started to see those colors come back in America,
Yeah.
and people start to really show their racism. And then Trump kind of like was like, "Well, we're here, we're proud, we're true," and I don't know. I didn't think that racism was dead, but I didn't know it was still as bad as it used to be. It's just
That's
it's
what you worry about. You
yeah,
worry about the people you don't see
right.
because it just stays. And a friend of mine, he put something on Facebook, his white friend, about what Trump did this week. And if you have any, you can call in if you have any views on this. What Trump, Trump said, he called the countries assholes and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And there were people on there, well, they are. I mean,
Just ignorance.
they were just
Just
saying,
plain
yeah, they
ignorance.
are. I've been there. They're this and that and the other thing. And I told this friend of mine, I just put on there, I said, I'm really glad you posted that because I see how many of your friends are racist. I just put it out there
Right.
because they are. I mean, I don't care what you say. You may have a black friend or whatever, but you could still harbor racist opinions.
Right. Absolutely.
And how do you find it now with relationships between whites and blacks your age?
Um, I I'm not one of those people that says I don't see color. So, but I think that when I walk into a room, it's not my go-to to separate myself from I notice that I'm around people of other colors and things of that nature, but it's not my goal when I walk into a room to be like, okay, there's four white people in here, there's five black people in here, there's a couple Asians in here, and things like
Oh,
that.
right, right. You
Yeah,
don't count.
right. I'm not counting or anything like that, but I feel like our relationship is we have mixed relations and things like that. I can't speak for the whole of millennials or black individuals of my age, but I know that the encounters that I've had have been mixed. I've had issues with white individuals, and then I've had great experiences with white
Right.
individuals, and I've had individuals help me regardless of what they see on the outside. And so yeah, I think yeah,
King always talked about the content of your character.
right,
And that's very important. And you find good and bad in
right,
every race, every race.
exactly.
You can't you can't help it because sometimes it's unfortunate. We it should stick together, but I look at the fact that many times we have to try harder. We always have to work harder to make our mark or make our point.
Yeah.
And like somebody posted, like I told you yesterday, saying I was the best director he had ever had. And this is a member of the Grosse Point Theater. And it's like I'm probably the only black director he's ever had, but he found that, I was no different. I was not a worse director than anybody.
Yeah.
You just had to um, come in there and just do your job and treat everybody like the same, you know. And I don't know, did you ever find in your classes that teachers might have harbored some feelings?
Um, I never really noticed actually. I remember to go back kind of like to the relations between black and white individuals. I remember there was a time when I was at my class at Wayne State, and we talked about education. And so it was a guy who was a white Republican, and then there was a young girl. I'm not sure. I think she was Republican too. And we were talking about college education, and I said that I feel like college education should be free for everyone. Everybody should be able to get a degree because everybody needs knowledge.
I bet you were for Bernie Sanders.
Huh?
Were you for Bernie Sanders?
Not necessarily. I didn't really. I didn't research his policies that much, but I did like some of the things that he had. But
Yeah, it would be really nice if it was free tuition.
yeah, I would love
I
that. I
didn't
wouldn't
see
have
how that
college
would
debt
have
right now.
happened. Right, right.
And so one of the things he said, he was like, "I don't believe that everybody should have access to get a degree," and I just thought that was absurd because I was like, that means that everybody, a lot of people stay ignorant, and so it's wild to me that um, education is sort of this thing for the privilege rather than something that is a right, because I feel like it's a right to educate yourself, right?
Years ago, before my time, before your time, it was a privilege of the elite
Right, right.
to get an education.
Hmm.
And that's unfortunate. And I've told this story before, and it kind of makes me cry, but it chokes me up every time I tell the story. Because my mother, she went to South Carolina State, and she took a civil service exam to get a job, I think maybe at the post office or something like that. Well, she got the highest score on the civil service test, and she had to go to Charleston, South Carolina to get the job. And she goes to Charleston, and she tells them her name, and they said, "Are you sure you're her?" And she said, "Yes, here's my ID." They said, "Oh, it's a different one." They said
Wow.
her name, and she had to get back on the bus and go home.
Mm.
I mean, she had packed her suitcase.
Wow.
And that's just the way it was, and they were able to get away with that.
Hmm.
And that is so very, it makes me, it gets me still to this day that people can just, you earn it,
Right.
and they still won't give it to you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and I've always been taught to work twice as hard, to do, I feel like I don't brag about my resume, but if you look at my resume, twice as hard or even triple, if you really want to say.
Right.
I've had internships out the wazoo since I got out of high school. I have all the experience in the world, and it's just, and still, it's kind of like there was no doors like wide open for me when I was, when I graduated. I still have to keep working. And I'm not complaining about that at
What do
all.
you want to
But
do?
yeah.
What is the main thing that you'd like to do?
I would say multimedia journalism. I have a lot of experience in audio, in video, in production skills, and just like
What
feature
your
writing.
video,
Mhm.
as far as what? Just doing a camera or what? What?
So like creating stories and putting. So have you watched Now This? Like the do you know the news publication Now This? It's sort of like an online.
No,
Mm,
I watch. I mean, I should, but I don't. I didn't know about it. I watch. I watch Vice.
okay.
I watch
Yeah,
Vice.
Vice is
With
great.
Vice is great. It
Yeah.
has these news stories that,
Yeah.
and they kind of go into things that the
Yeah.
regular mainstream media doesn't
Mhm.
go into.
Yes, so things like that, and so things like advice, and then Now This, they do sort of shorts where it's sort of you have a minute or a minute and a half worth of information, and it has text and it has pictures and audio and things of that nature, and sort
Oh,
of
that's good. That's
yeah,
multimedia.
right,
That's
basically,
and it's online.
yeah,
Oh, what time does it come on? Or it's on all
it's
day.
on all day. Yeah, they
What's
do and
it?
post
What's
different
it called
things.
again?
Now This,
Now this. Well, you
yeah,
heard that. If you
yes,
have a computer, definitely check it out.
yeah.
So you want to get into something like that? What you
Yeah.
want to do on air?
I've been told that I should, but I'm always for being behind the scenes, just because I feel like you have more power and control, and you're able to push what you want to push and give more ideas rather than being the talking head. But I'm not opposed to anything. I'm always open to new experiences, always opening to, um, you know, getting my feet wet in anything. You never know what'll
You,
be your niche.
you never know. And
Yeah.
as you grow older, you'll see that you can do more things than one thing.
Right. Yeah.
I think that right now I'm actually suffering through this
Hmm.
presidency.
Hmm.
I'm saying that because maybe it's not affecting me as much as it might affect you who may want to go to grad school, or you know It's
Yeah.
affecting the way things are financed.
Right.
And it seems to be rising to an elitist thing
Right.
where they want just a certain group
Hmm.
to get the advantages.
Yeah. I mean, I argue with my dad sometimes about capitalism and the way that we function as a society because I don't necessarily believe that it's the best way for us to operate because it separates poor from rich and it kind of does that hierarchy thing where it's kind of like, what do you need $1 billion for? You know what I mean? Or something like that. And then why is there somebody, to your left who is extremely impoverished? There's kind of like an imbalance there. And some people, it's because of their environments, and others, it's because of privilege. It's just kind of like everyone. I mean, I believe that everyone should have an equal playing field. I don't know how exactly that would
Well,
all work,
right.
but I just don't. When you have like really, really rich people and then really, really poor people, there's something wrong with the system. There's something wrong because everybody should have equal opportunity to everything, and everybody doesn't have that opportunity.
No, everyone doesn't. And that's not the only thing that keeps some people down. A lot of times people have not been exposed
Right.
to the fact that they can do better.
Resources.
If you
Yeah.
and resources, absolutely. And sometimes getting to those resources means leaving the house
Right.
and getting there.
Hmm.
I wish when I was graduating from high school that they had see right now in your school you had a career center,
Yeah.
you had resources that you could go out to. I didn't know anything. We
Hmm.
didn't have any of that stuff or um, that young people have today as far as exposure is concerned.
Hmm.
But we made it anyway because somebody, this is what had happened to me.
Hmm.
I was in typing class and I was sitting next to Venetia, my girlfriend, who was one of my girlfriends at school. I said, "So, girl, what you gonna do after we graduate?" It was senior
Hmm.
year. She said, "Well, I'm going to Eastern." I said, "Eastern? It's Eastern Michigan University." I said, "Oh." I said, "Golly," because I had gotten to 12th grade and didn't even think about what's next.
Hmm.
And I said, "Well, I guess I'll apply there." That's how I
Hmm.
got there
Yeah.
because and then we found out that we could go up there. We went up there, and I'll never forget the man, Mr. Zorn. My mother and I went up for financial aid because she couldn't afford it,
Hmm.
and the man said, "Okay, you could get a grant here, this here, national
Yeah.
defense loan here." And
Yeah.
my mother only ended up having to pay $13 and $14,
Hmm.
and I could not let her down with that.
Right.
Almost did. There was
Yeah.
one report card she never saw.
Yeah.
But besides that, they were giving you the opportunity
Hmm.
to go.
Yeah. And it was kind of like that for me when I graduated high school. I kind of felt like I just went, I picked a school and I was like, okay, well, if they accept me, then, that's cool. It's not a lack of my parents trying to make me serious about education, but at the time I was balancing a lot emotionally and with my health and everything. So it's a lot of components and factors that go into why we might not be where we want to be in life.
Right.
So yeah, I feel kind of like I share the same story of you just like randomly
Yeah.
picking Eastern.
And
So
I just, just going on with the flow.
right.
Then I got up there and I said, "This is a community of kids. Where have I been?"
Yeah.
It was just so wonderful.
Yeah.
But there are roadblocks still.
Yeah.
There are roadblocks still. I
Hmm.
remember too that second year getting wearing an afro,
Hmm.
and everybody through campus was looking, said, "Oh wow,
Mm.
I had an afro." And my cousin, he said, "Are you militant?" I said, "I don't know, maybe." It was
Fight the
like,
power.
yeah, yeah. But my mother, I never saw her shrink from anybody, no
Hmm.
matter the color. I
Yeah.
never saw her shrink.
Hmm.
And wherein my father, he wouldn't look at a person straight in the eye.
Really?
No,
Wow.
no. He was a tall man,
Mm.
but he wouldn't look people straight in the well, white people
Wow.
straight in the eye.
What was his experiences like?
Well, he ran out of town from Tuscaloosa,
Mm.
Alabama. They said he had hit a white man.
Wow.
Yeah. So maybe he thought that,
He would get seen by somebody.
yeah, I don't know. I
Ugh.
don't know.
Yeah.
The only thing that gave him courage was a little bit of the bubbly.
Mm.
Then he, I'm the man, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned a lot of lessons from watching that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm looking at now, there are, I'm going to have one of my former students who graduated from Southfield, like you,
Mm-hmm.
who uh, who has a good business going downtown,
Mm-hmm.
and really good business. And I'm gonna have her on, hopefully in February, and she's going to talk about how she did it. See, there are opportunities,
Yeah.
but we got to get in that door.
Right.
Everybody's not able to get in that door
Right.
and be at the table. What was the expression? Either you're at the table or you're going to be served at the table or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to make sure we get in those particular doors.
Right.
So you're applying now to different places?
Yeah, I applied to the Huffington Post. I applied to BuzzFeed, to so many different opportunities that are kind of like graduate programs where national platforms are trying to kind of get graduate students like real world experience on a larger platform and things of that nature. So those are kind of the opportunities that I'm going for. I'm also looking for smaller networks because that's where you can grow. You can
Yeah.
make as many mistakes as as you need to, and you can be a multimedia journalist in those environments because they have little to no staff and or smaller staff, I would say.
Well, I started teaching. I got my job things when I was in my last semester of college, and I got a job offer from Detroit and a job offer from Highland Park.
Mm-hmm.
I chose Highland Park because it was a smaller system. I had become familiar with it because I student taught here, but also because, well, I like the people in the community. But besides that, I could learn more in a smaller system.
Mm-hmm.
And it did me well. It really did me well. And I understand, so I understand what you mean
Mm-hmm.
about a smaller situation.
Yeah.
Now, in 2 years, well, it's almost 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
we have, okay, well, no, let me start back with this year. We have a vote, a big vote coming up for some representatives and senators or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, and a governor, the
Mm-hmm.
state of Michigan. How do you think we could get young people more involved in the voting process?
I've been wondering the same because I'm trying to figure out a way to get myself involved in the voting
Yeah,
process.
yeah.
So I think it's really just education. And sometimes I feel like I don't want to be a part of politics because of what's going on, but I know that it's necessary because you need to change policy and you need to have individuals that are in seats that can make change, an actual change, and that listen to the people. But I think that sometimes we're delivered so much propaganda and there's so much competition that you can't weed through who is good,
I
who's for the
know.
people, who's not for the
I
people.
know. It
You
seems
know,
like a crapshoot,
right,
but we have to be involved. And
right.
I know a lot of the viewers just say, no, I'm sitting it out.
Hmm.
These off year elections, like the one this year, are so important.
Hmm.
I look at the fact that people I know who are filmmakers, who are like from California and so forth, who want to make films here, don't because of the film incentives.
Yeah.
This governor made sure that those film incentives were taken away.
That made me mad when he did that.
Yeah,
I was like,
I mean,
wow.
because, and so they're going to Atlanta
Right.
to make the film,
Hmm.
which really is unfortunate. If you say in Detroit or Michigan is really paramount or getting ahead, why do you have to cut off things like that?
Right. Exactly.
Because the amount of jobs that come not only with acting and production, catering, costuming, just
Hmm.
so many other
Yeah.
positions.
licensing and publishing for musicians, things of that nature. Like, when I heard about the initiative before I graduated, I was just like, this would be a great, like the incentive, sorry, before I graduated, like this would be great for the state of Michigan.
Right.
And so when the governor shut it down, I was just like, how many people have just lost out on opportunities? And this could have been a major thing for Detroit and actually helped with what's going on right now with Detroit. And
Right.
I feel like probably maybe could have curbed bankruptcy. You never know.
Well, it might have been able to. I don't know. I mean, that bankruptcy was
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think so many things are just engineered and we don't know behind the scenes
Yeah.
some of the things that are going on.
Yeah,
We don't know.
absolutely.
I believe there are backroom deals. I believe that. But that still's not going to keep me from trying to get involved as much as I can through my vote,
Right.
through media,
Right.
or whatever I can do.
Yeah.
But when you told me you were thinking about, should I sit out, or not vote, I don't understand it. I really
Yeah.
don't. I know there's a frustration, but if you can't say, at least I tried.
Right. I think for me, it's not voting for, the lesser of two evils. I just don't believe in voting for evil. So sometimes where for this last presidency, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I didn't vote. And it was because I didn't feel like it would have mattered. Because of how, so Hillary had the popular vote, right, for most of the United States, but Electoral College voted for Trump. And so I was just like, this is an exact example of why I don't vote.
But you didn't get into it.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
I
that's
mean
true, but
that attitude is like, I give up. You
yeah.
know how
Yeah, I
somebody
understand
comes
that.
and holds a gun on you and you say, okay,
Yeah.
whatever, take it. I give up.
Yeah.
And I don't see that apathy. I just don't understand that apathy. And maybe it's from where I come from, but I just don't believe I have voted for more losers than winners, but at least I've tried to get out there and affect some change some kind of way.
I think it's because mainly, like, for me, I don't necessarily believe in what everything that the Democrats and the Republicans say. So I'm fall someplace in the middle where,
So let's talk about that. What are some of the things that they say, um, that the Democrats say that you don't agree with? Do you know?
so so that's the thing is I have to look up more policy. I have to be more involved with politics because I definitely close myself off as an individual and like not an individual but as a millennial, and I just I need to know more, and I feel like I don't know enough
Listen,
for me to say I'm Democratic or Republican.
you don't have to say that. You don't have to lay down that gauntlet. You can vote for whomever you want, but vote. I'm just saying that you I just I'm not involved. I'm not a group thinker. I don't go along with the group all the time and think like the group. I try to think for myself. And you don't have to think for the group. And I think it was a case that you have a man right now. I know people of other ethnicities, well, maybe our same ethnicity, African people, Haitian people, their families can't even get in the are going it's going to be that their families can't get in the country.
Right.
And that's unfair.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, this president is driving racist policies.
Right.
And so I just feel that I'm pretty sure that Hillary Clinton would not have driven racist
Right.
policies. I
Yeah.
mean, seriously.
Yeah.
And this man is almost worse than I thought he would be. And but one thing that is for sure, I got to see how ignorant people are
Yeah.
throughout this country.
Yeah. You're getting to see the racial climate for real now.
Yeah.
So,
I knew it was there, but it's rearing its head.
right.
And there was a situation in Sears the other day that a friend of mine talked about. Her niece was in there buying something, and the sales lady was helping her. And then a white woman came up and she said, "Excuse me, can you help me with such and such?" And she said, "Well, I'm waiting on a customer." This woman reared her head and started calling her, "What you gonna wait on this N word before?" I mean, I'm here. I mean, it
Wow.
just became just really a big thing. She's calling the girl
Wow.
a name and all of this. The security had to remove the lady. It was a white woman.
Wow.
So do you think that people feel freer to talk like they want to
Oh,
talk now?
absolutely, absolutely. Because they're being okay. They're being verified through Trump. Because he says anything, he tweets anything, and it might not. It's called what is it? False news, and that's not
Fake
really
news.
or fake news or
He's the
it's
fake
just
news.
it's just so exhausting.
Well, it's more, even
So
more so than
exhausting.
that. You have, and I agree, politicians will lie,
Yeah.
but this man lies. I mean,
Everything he says.
I think it's either the Times, New York Times, or the Post have recorded every lie he said since he's been in office, and
Hmm.
it's way over 2,000.
Wow.
It's way over 2,000. And he's still been allowed to. It seems like he does not get any recourse for
Hmm.
what he does.
Hmm.
He does the wrong thing and nobody gives him any recourse. And then
Hmm.
yesterday he said, "I'm the least racist person you ever met."
That's funny. So what do you feel like should be done
Oh,
then?
okay. Let me, I don't know. With Trump,
Yeah. Just to yeah.
I watch things, I listen to things every day. I'm just, I don't wish anything, I can't wish anything violent on him,
Mm.
though I sometimes kind of want to, but I couldn't wish anything like that because that goes against, you know, God and all of this. But I want to see him brought down to Chinatown. In other words, he lies so much, and he doesn't seem to, even when they catch him. It's okay. Go on to the next thing. It's
Hmm.
like people forget so quick because he's driving the news cycle,
Right.
and that's very very unfortunate. Gosh, what do you think?
Um, I'm not sure exactly what needs to be done at this point in time. I feel like
I don't want him in office, but I don't want, and but his vice president
yeah.
is horrible
Yeah,
too.
the people that come after him are definitely going to be very interesting as well. I feel like they might be worse than Trump actually. It might be because I mean, I feel like it's better to see your enemy coming rather than to have your back turned and then they just sneak up on you. And I feel
Well,
like
we
Trump, you can see him sort of
we
coming from a
know that Mike
distance.
Pence is he's kind of the enemy. We kind of know this, but he's not as verbose about it right now. But I
Right.
think he's sitting there on the shelf just waiting for Trump
Yeah.
to be brought down. He's playing the game. He is trying to be all nice and all of this, but
Mhm.
people in the Republican Party, I've never seen a group of cowards like that who don't come out against him. And then there's a young black woman who's a Republican from Utah. Her name is Mia something. And she was on television yesterday because she kind of called Trump out. But I'm saying to her, how do you stay in this party?
Yeah.
How do you stay with a leader like that? I know of many people who have dropped out of the Republican Party.
Really. Wow.
But I just can't understand how you allow someone to not just say what he said the other day, but how he's maligned black athletes.
Yeah.
He said, "Fire them, fire." He's like that. He's a crazy.
Mhm.
I want to call him a bad word,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to do it.
I
But
think he feels like it's a reality show. I feel like he is using this platform to make because I feel like we have cameras all around us and it's just like the whole world is watching America just like Trump the reality show. It's just I don't know. It feels like that to me because it just doesn't
You
seem it doesn't seem real. It seems so scripted to me for
Well,
some
Barack
reason.
Obama was did an interview with David Letterman. I watched it this weekend, and he said that it seems like the people who watch Fox News
Hmm.
are on an alternative universe. You know, an alternative universe because they twist everything around to something that isn't.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of people. There were teachers at Southfield
Hmm.
that I had to argue with because they were watching that and they believed everything that was
Hmm.
said on that station. So the whole thing about who we are as a people, and that's the discussion we had on Friday too, was our narrative. It's like other people are dictating our lives,
Right.
our
Right.
what our narrative is, and we have to take back. We have to control it.
Right. And the spectrum of blackness, I've always said this is like it's it's not linear. It's something that can be anything. We exist in many different spectrums. We exist in many different narratives. But there's only a few shown. If even if that, I feel like there's maybe two shown: the thug and then the loud black woman type thing.
Oh yeah.
So
Well, it's funny because remember Trump said, "You walk down the street and get murdered, you this and that in your neighborhoods." He was talking to all black people, and that's not so for all black people.
exactly,
It's
because we
not
don't
so.
all live in those conditions.
Well, no, we don't live in those conditions, and there are things we're doing to try to help clean up those things
Right.
in certain neighborhoods that are more high crime. You think people want that?
No.
And look at oh gee, it's hard for me to even talk about this man, but I just believe that we have to do more. And Martin Luther King's nephew was standing up right next to him as he signed this proclamation the other day, and that somebody else wrote about about Martin Luther King. How dare he?
Mm.
I mean, it's like, how dare he? So I think that we have to take more charge. And how do you think the young people can take more charge of their narrative? You talk millennials.
Hmm.
I don't think anything bad about the millennials,
Hmm.
really, because people are people.
Right.
But what do you think as far as the millennials that that could do better? In what ways?
I think it's about educating ourselves. It's about reading. It's about um, being more present in politics in our communities, inserting ourselves at the table, at preparing ourselves in high school, in college, tapping into our resources. If we don't have resources, finding those resources, because I feel like we have internet. There's a vast amount of information, and you can pretty much find anything that you need or want nowadays. So some may say that there's no excuse, but I know that resources, everybody doesn't have access to a computer, everybody doesn't have access to books, but there are libraries. And so I feel like those individuals who don't have access to maybe a computer at home and television and things of that nature, they need to go to, the library and just get involved and try to help, you know,
They'll give you a library card.
yeah.
They will.
Hmm.
And I remember a year ago, I interviewed Hill Harper by phone, but he had an initiative that he was trying to do as far as cell phones or smartphones to get all children or young people, teenagers, cell phones
Hmm.
so that they'd have access to the internet, free internet.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted to do.
Hmm.
And here's another thing that really disturbed me. I was looking up something about schools. No, I was looking for something that I did when I was teaching at Southfield. And then I saw this thing, Southfield fight number 1, Southfield fight number 2. I mean, the fights that are on the internet,
Hmm.
which made me, that it really upset me because it looked like to the person who probably wasn't there, it looked like there's fighting all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that really, really, really bothered me because, well, I know there's not, but it's just the fact that it is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if somebody else sees this and you apply to a college,
Mm-hmm.
it says Southfield High, and they say, oh, that's where I saw all that ruckus, all of
Mm-hmm.
that. What can we do to make our children less violent?
I feel like you would have to change a lot of the environments some of them grow up in. I feel like we watch a lot of television that's violent. We are in neighborhoods sometimes that are violent, and it's just about our conditioning. So I feel like reality shows sometimes promote that violent lifestyle, even though a lot of those individuals don't live what they project on television.
Absolutely.
And so it's very interesting that a lot of us feel like we want to live those lifestyles when we don't really know what actually goes on. And so I feel like we have a lot of healing to do. We need to talk about mental illness in our communities,
Oh,
and
definitely.
so there's a
Definitely.
lot of healing, a lot of past healing that we need to do within our families, within ourselves, and I feel like from there we can start to begin talking about progression and where we need to go for the next generations, and after we heal.
Well, that saga is going to continue. I'm going to have a young lady on that wrote a book about depression. And I've had, psychologists on who've talked about the stigma of mental illness
Mm-hmm.
in our community and all of that.
Yeah.
I just, why we have to get help.
Yeah, very important. Very, very
Very,
important.
we have to face it first.
Mm-hmm.
And so many times in our communities, we don't
Yeah.
face it.
Yeah. And if anybody is ever afraid, I'm going to see a therapist. I have things that I need to work out with my own life, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I talk to people about it,
Oh,
and I feel like, I need help. And so does everybody else. Anybody who's watching this show.
well, I've had worlds collide. I bet I definitely I believe in it. I believe in
Yeah.
getting help, and I believe in therapy and therapists just sometimes to help you sort out what's going on with
Absolutely.
yourself.
Yeah.
And this saga is going to continue because I'm
Yes.
gonna have Jasmine back.
Yay.
Okay. So well, I'll see everybody Friday. I have a great show for you Friday. I have an ex convict on to talk about his new book. And we have table talk, of course, and a lot of things going on. So have a good week. I'll see you Friday. Thank you, Jazz.